Hello everyone, welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. Today, in this episode of Weekly News Flash, we're going to be dealing with a very interesting story. Today we're going to be looking at the news report that a 4 to 500-year-old seagrass meadow is the world's largest known plant. So in this week, 5 to 11 June 2022, there was a news report that said researchers in Australia found out a seagrass meadow is the world's largest known plant. So we're going to be looking at this in some detail today. Well, let's start off with the snippet of the news itself. The Indian Express ran an article saying world's largest known plant is 4,500 years old, stretches across 180 kilometers. Researchers happened across the plant when they took genetic samples of what they thought were two different plants over 180 kilometers apart. So, now this is a snippet of the article. The article goes on along in the Indian Express, but let's look at the, watered down version of what's going on. So, recently, the world's largest plant species has been discovered off the west coast of Australia. And this plant is around 180 kilometers in length. The plant belongs to a species of seagrass called ribbonweed, and its scientific name is Posidonia australis. The plant species was discovered by the University of Western Australia. Now let's look at some more details about the plant itself, the location and expanse of the meadow. Now, the plant species was discovered in the shallow waters of the World Heritage Area in Shark Bay, West Australia. It is 180 kilometers long, and it's about the size of 20,000 football fields, which in hectares is 20,000 hectares. So the meadow stretches for 20,000 hectares underwater. Now, what's also interesting about this plant is that it's almost 4,500 years old. So in Indian terms, it has been in existence since the age of the Indus Valley Civilization, which is very long. That means it's also the oldest plant species alive. So all of this is actually one single plant. Now, let's take note, there are some other large plant species, particularly the quaking aspen. Pando, which is this image right here, is a quaking aspen clonal colony in Utah, and this colony was considered to be the world's largest known species of plant alive before the latest discovery. Now, in India, the largest tree is the Great Banyan tree, which is in Howrah's Botanical Garden in the city of Kolkata. And this is a snippet of the tree in question. Now let's look at some genetic and biological features of this meadow. Now, this meadow was formed out of a single colonizing seedling. So basically, all of the meadow was formed out of one seed. How is that possible? The particular plant that's in this meadow is sterile and has twice the chromosomes of its oceanic brethren. So basically, the plant here is sterile, which means it does not produce flowers and it does not reproduce, and it has twice the number of chromosomes compared to other plants of Posidonia australis. Now, since it has twice the chromosomes, since this plant is sterile, it means that it's extremely resilient without flowering and seed production. So basically, it does not produce any flowers, and it's extremely resilient to environmental conditions. It also practices sologamy, which means that all of the meadow is actually one single plant which contains a lot of shoots. So it's one plant containing many shoots. The meadow is a polyploid organism. What it means is that the whole genome of the polyploid organism is basically 100% of both parents. So for example, the male parent and the female parent gave 100% of their chromosomes. So the male gave 100% and the female gave 100%. So therefore, the offspring has twice the number of chromosomes as their parents. This is what we call a polyploid. And Because of the fact that it's a polyploid, it is sterile, and it also means that it's extremely resilient and it practices sologamy, and that's why the meadow has expanded. Now, this meadow is highly adapted to extreme ranges of temperature, so it can last in extreme heat and extreme cold. It's also adapted to varying salinity levels, and also it grows in bright light, which is usually a condition that threatens other organisms. Now let's look at some other results of this study. Posidonia australis, the species of the meadow, was known before the discovery of the meadow itself by the University of Western Australia. However, this particular study discovered that all of these shoots in that meadow in Shark Bay were all a single organism. So the big takeaway from the study is that this particular meadow is the world's largest. We did know what Posidonia australis was, and it was classified way before this discovery. So that's an important point. Another important result is the fact that the weed's rhizomes, which, if you were to represent, is the horizontal shoot growing between two vertical shoots, it grows up to 35 centimeters a year, which means that if you were able to calculate the length of the rhizome and then divide it by, let's say, 35, researchers would be able to estimate its age, which is how we found out that it's over 4,500 years old. Now, this particular plant has survived for centuries by polyploidy, which made it sterile and allowed it to survive in a harsh environment. And now let's look at some benefits of seaweed. Now, this is benefits of seaweed in general. Now, seaweed provides home and shelter to various small organisms like fish, and it also is a source of food for threatened species such as dugongs and manatees, which are herbivores. Seaweed is considered as an ecosystem engineer because of the fact that they change the land around them. They also trap sediments and prevent water from getting muddy, so they act as natural filters under the ocean. Seaweed is also good at sequestering carbon from the atmosphere. It's found out that seaweed sequester carbon at a rate that's faster than tropical rainforests, which is why seaweed is pretty important in our fight against climate change. Seaweed also controls soil erosion underwater. Now let's look at the expanse of seagrass in the Indian subcontinent. Now, seagrass is usually found in tropical waters such as the Gulf of Mannar and the Palk Strait between India and Sri Lanka. If you were to look at a map, the Gulf of Kutch has a significant amount of seaweed. The Lakshadweep Islands is also known for its presence of seaweed. The Gulf of Mannar, the Palk Strait, as well as the Chilaka Lake, which is a saltwater lake in Odisha. Also, we have seaweed concentrations in Andaman and Nicobar Islands as well. So these are the areas in India where seaweed is prominently found. Now, that concludes this episode of Weekly News Flash. We hope you found this episode interesting. For more of our useful and interesting content, don't forget to subscribe to Brain Blitz Audios. If you want to get the latest updates from our channel, then please don't forget to hit the bell icon present below the video. So, until the next episode, take care, stay safe, bye-bye for now.